forgot about the recording, so good evening again. We're back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are studying self-preservation and in the chapter Law of Preservation, and we stopped on question 707. So today we are starting on question 708. Okay, Philip.
Are there any social situations in human life when the will is incapable of attaining the means of existence? And in that case, the deprivation of the most fundamental necessities is a consequence of such circumstances. Yes, but this would be a trial that the Spirit was aware of having to endure. The merit of individuals involved in such a trial will be based on their surrendering to God's will if their intelligence does not free them from their troubles. If death occurs, they should accept it without complaint, remembering that their hour of true freedom has arrived, and that yielding to despair at the last minute, no matter how little, may cause them to lose the reward of their prior resignation.
So the continuation in this item, what we discussed, it was that if Earth provides us enough for humankind, enough food or enough resources for humankind to survive by itself, and we went over that there is enough resources, is just a problem of distribution, right? That even going beyond food, Earth also provides resources. You know, we talked a little bit about oil. We talked about lithium, which is the future, right, of the electric cars and cell phones. So the question here that the Kardec asks the spirits, if there is any special situation where we are incapable of obtaining these means of existence. We find ourselves in a place, in a situation that Earth cannot provide. Cannot provide resources. And you know, you can think of some regions that will lack food because of that you have famine, right? Because of lack of agriculture that was destroyed by the weather or changes in the temperature and things that happen throughout the world. At that time, it was even more difficult for these people that were struggling to find help from elsewhere. Nowadays, with the communications we have throughout the world, everybody knowing everything that is happening in most places, the world is more prepared to help and assist the acute crisis. But for instance, we have heard, and we don't know details, of North Korea being people in North Korea starving because of course, the government handle of the situation, but also for weather situation. So that of course, it's a completely closed regime, so we have no idea of the numbers, but apparently a lot of people died of hunger in North Korea in the past 10 years because they had some crisis. Yes. Yeah. So,
but they didn't disclose that.
No, they don't, because the regime says that everything is always good, and that's the best place in the world. They always sell this to the outside world, and they control the communications. Yeah. So the information we have is based on satellite photos and some people that escape from North Korea and go to South Korea and tell. So it's a very close regime. So but still, we have in Africa some places that people struggle to find food. And when it becomes a big event, then the world unites itself and then they send help. But on a daily issues, I'm sure there's still a lot of people that die for lack of food, and goes unnoticed because it's just
It's not like every year there's no rain and.
yes, regions that that have issues, problems, and you know, even that they are not well administered by the rulers, right? The rulers, you know, in many places, the rulers steal enough that do not allow the distribution to go to the poorest people, right? That's why you have a lot of the NGOs in the world being able to help and assist a lot of these people in need. Now, going back to the question here, at that time, if you think about what happened in Ireland, right? The big immigration here to the US happened because of a big famine in Ireland that was around that time, 1850, 1860, something, right? So going back to the question, what Kardec is saying is, there is enough for everybody if we are fair and we are able to take care of our brothers and sisters like we should. But if you find yourself in a situation that despite your best efforts, you cannot provide for yourself or for those around you, it may be part of a trial, maybe a consequence of what abuses of the past that we went through. So if we abuse hoarding for ourselves without distributing to others in our previous incarnations, we may have to face a challenge of being without any resources for ourselves, so we can learn, right? So what the spirits are telling us here is that the important point here is how you accept with resignation, right? The resignation and acceptance goes to the top of how you should deal with the situation. Again, always trying to find a solution, because that's what, the instinct that we talk about, self-preservation, we're talking about it. Our first objective is for us to find means to survive. So we continue searching all possible ways to survive. But if we cannot find ways, then enters the resignation and not go into despair, because if we go into despair, we end up causing more trouble to ourselves, complications to ourselves on our return to the spiritual world. Okay? Questions? Okay, the next one is one that is interesting. You're on mute, Philip. I don't know. You muted yourself. Oh, there you go.
When during extreme crisis, where human beings are forced to consume the flesh of other human beings to survive, are they committing a crime? If so, does the fact their action is based on an instinct of self-preservation lessen the crime? I have already responded by saying that there is more merit in undergoing life's trials with courage and resignation. In these cases, human beings resort to both homicide and commit a crime against nature. This results in dual culpability that receives dual atonement.
Yeah, so here the question is about cannibalism, right? If you kill someone else to eat, to survive, in an extreme situation with complete lack of resources, you kill someone else just to survive. And the spirits are saying here, you are committing a double crime, right? It's homicide plus you're going against the natural law. Whenever we have this question, people always bring the question of the flight in the end is, yes, which is a different story, again, because they didn't kill each other. They didn't kill each other. So they ate the flesh of those that were already dead. So they are not committing a crime here. How you are going to deal with your conscience morally later, it's a difficult situation, but they didn't commit a crime. Okay, it's like, you know, if it was if they have found dead animals and consumed the dead animals, we wouldn't even know about the case. We wouldn't have been having this discussion. The problem is that in order to survive, they ate their, you know, dead companions of the trip. It's a ethical and moral dilemma that I don't think we have an answer for that, right? Our objective is to survive.
Preservation.
So in that pure sense, what they did was a way to survive.
Yeah.
But how you deal with that, you know, we looking at them, I don't think we can say that they committed any crime against nature or homicide, but I don't know how they can deal with that. I'm sure that there has to be some PTSD on that, right?
Yeah, I imagine so.
You will take from what's from my script.
I wonder,
But isn't that the still a crime against nature? Because it said you're like, well,
you see, the problem here that I'm having here, you have to go back into the original and see, because the spirits are not answer Kardec's question, really. They're talking homicide, and Kardec does not ask about homicide. The consuming are forced to consume flesh of other human beings to survive. And that's what we're talking about here with the survivors of the Andes. Right, there is no homicide, but the spirits are talking about homicide here.
Yeah, the answer is homicide.
Yeah, so we have to see the original, because they are not answering Kardec here, in my opinion. Or they are adding something here.
Yeah, I didn't look at the original on the question. I actually looked for another one.
Naturally, someone commits homicide, like against nature, for sure, no question. But in my personal opinion, as you said, a dead body is just a pile of flesh, and it is, if it's useful, can be consumed.
Yeah.
In extreme situations, naturally, only in extreme situations. Well, hopefully the spirit who used that body is already gone, or you understand. You're not coming after us.
Yeah, you know, you are dealing here with a concept that we discuss in Spiritism in other discussions, which is once you leave your physical body behind, that's it. There is nothing there. The physical body.
You're not your body.
No, it's not. It belongs to nature, right?
Go back to nature.
So in terms of the spirit being affected, the spirit is not affected. That's, yeah. Now, in terms of those that consume, that's the problem for them, right? Because, you know, you have to look back and think, do I wish to have died there instead of having to gone through? I don't know. Our instinct of self-preservation probably kicks in strongly, right?
So,
Yeah.
but it's the problem of the taboos and dogmas about how to go about the cadaver, right? Some communities, some civilizations, some religions say that you must bury, and must bury following us. Traditions and rituals. Some say that you must burn it. following a series of, so we developed all these cultural aspects about how to deal with a cadaver that we bring as an atavism. If you don't know from this culture, you already bring from now atavism from previous experiences, and to consume a human flesh becomes extremely difficult for us because of these atavisms, because of these cultural things. But in reality, as we learn in spirituals, now it's just a amount of flesh that belongs to nature now.
I wonder how was I remember the cave, I don't remember the questions about shares, something like that.
It was a big story at that time. They even made a movie out of it, and you know,
The church, did they get anything about it?
I don't remember because I wasn't at that time. I wasn't. It was before I was even a spiritist, so I don't remember looking for any religious. And I really didn't care about any religious opinion at that time, I believe. So I don't remember looking at it. I don't. You remember anything else in terms of the religious reaction? Anyone remembered anything? No.
Well, that was, you were teenagers.
Yeah, I was very young. Yeah.
Well, that's the most famous case, but there are other cases in history that deals with this. The consumption of human flesh after that body was already dead. As I'm assuming this case of some Portuguese that got lost in the Amazon and ended up consuming human flesh. Now you can't explain to me in the Amazon person of fight food.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extremely suspicious to me,
Yeah.
but I'm not there. I can think of it. There are the cases of people got lost in Tierra del Fuego and they did the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's the most famous one, but it's not the only.
Right. Okay. Let's move on.
710.
Yeah.
In worlds where the physical makeup of living beings is purer than on Earth, do these beings need food? Yes, but their food matches their nature. Their food would not be enough for your basic stomachs, and those beings could not digest your heavier food.
Yeah. The more we evolved, the more we evolve, the less material or physical is the food we need to consume until we reach a point that we can feed ourselves with air, right? The perfect spirits don't need to eat food. Again, perfect spirits, when you are incarnated, you have a physical body, you need to feed the physical body. So more advanced worlds, but still not perfect spirits, you still need some sort of food, yes. But definitely it's not going to be animal food. And this is going to come later in a couple of questions. We're going to talk about consumption of animal food. But it's interesting that they say here, and that's important also, right? Their food would not, if we go there, we wouldn't be able to survive with their food because our physical body is much more gross than what they have. And they wouldn't be able to survive with our food because their physical bodies are much more ethereal than our physical body. So as we evolve, our food evolves also. What we need to consume in order to survive. The more we evolve, the more it will be air and the less will be solid. But and you read in Nosso Lar, right? You read that they still have some soups and they still have some fruits. What type and how does it work? Here is a copy of the spiritual world. So you can imagine it's something better than here, but still they need some sort of nutrition, right?
And when we discriminate, because we're still used to the food
Yeah.
that we have, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, when we go back to the spiritual world, you spent 50, 70, 90 years eating solid food here on earth, right? So you go back to the spiritual world, you get hungry.
Yeah.
So you need something. That's why there is food in the spiritual world that will be available. And again, when you read Nosso Lar, he talks about the revolution that happened in Nosso Lar some hundreds of years ago, right? Because the inhabitants, no, there's no alcohol, but the inhabitants were more willing to you know, to have food that was more similar to what we had here on earth. You have to imagine that this is 1800, 1700, something like that, right? So you are used to these banquets here that you see in movies, right?
So I could have my hamburger with French fries.
Yes, your hamburger with French fries in the in Nosso Lar. And but then the governor changed everything, right? And the food became much more lighter and much more adapted to the spiritual world than to the physical world, right? Which is what. But if you read some things about the lower zones, you read about spirits consuming what they find there in the lower zone. Some, you know, thinking that they are consuming food and they are consuming something. I don't know what it is. You know, it's better not even to go to investigate much what they are consuming there. But you know, we have, when you leave the physical body, you have the same. You know, you are used to it, right? You are feeling. You have all the feelings of the physical body still present, unless you understand the spiritual world and you can mentally adapt, because it's a matter of adapting. Thank you, mentally, right? It's the mental part that is going to make the change. So you need to adapt. But if you don't know, then you are looking for food, you are looking for water. Thirsty is something much more that you hear much more spirits coming, especially on our mediumship meetings on Monday, complaining that they want to have water. They are thirsty, yeah, much more than hungry. It's, you know, we drink water is much more. You drink much more water than we eat food, right? During the days, right? We can survive without food for 3 weeks. Yeah, we can 3 weeks, right? We can survive with water 3 days, right? Yeah. So. Okay. All right. Next, enjoying the fruits of the earth.
Do all human beings have a right to enjoy the fruits of the earth? This right is a direct corollary of the need to live. God does not impose a duty without providing the means of carrying it out.
Yeah, it's a little more of the same, right? We all human beings have the right to enjoy what Earth has to offer us, right? This is a part of the natural law. Again, the right doesn't mean that the ability or the access. That's a different story. But the right, everybody has the right. Okay.
Next. Why has God made using material things attractive? For 2 reasons. First, to motivate human beings to accomplish their mission, and second, to test them by temptation. What is the purpose of temptation? To develop human reason so that it may safeguard humankind from excess. If human beings are pressed to use physical things based on their value or usefulness alone, their indifference could have compromised the harmony of the universe. For that reason, God has given humans enjoyable attractions that lead them to carrying out divine plans. God uses these attractions to also test them with temptations that cause them to commit actions that their human reason should protect them against.
So this is the idea of the carrot, right? That we are chasing the carrot in front of us. Why do we need the carrot? Because without the carrot, we wouldn't make any effort. The temptations that, as they say here, right? The attractive material things is what makes humankind at this level of evolution. Again, we're talking about our level of evolution to push forward. And we discussed this here sometimes, right? If there was enough wealth for everyone on the planet, we wouldn't make any progress at our stage of evolution, because most of us are lazy by nature. So we need, at this stage of evolution, we still need a challenge. And the challenge is the temptation, right? Is the attraction that we have for something that we don't have. So on a personal level, we want to have the resources to buy what we want and we don't have. On a society level, we want to progress to offer better products, so more people will be more interested in buying more things that will bring more rewards for those that are producing. So it's a circle that we chase things that we want to have, and those producing the things try to do better things, more attractive things to attract more people. This is not an endless cycle, right? This is a stage that we are now. As we become more evolved, as we become more aware of our spiritual nature and our spiritual necessities in more evolved worlds, we will be less attracted to these temptations. We'll be more able to control and understand our temptations, and we would work to improve ourselves just for the sake of improving ourselves. That we don't do now. Again, I'm talking about the majority. Of course, there are people that already work because they want to evolve spiritually, right? You have the exceptions, and there is people that even needing to do something, don't do anything. They just live the way they can, trying to steal from others or to survive on government checks, things like that. Don't make any effort. But these are the exceptions, right? The majority of us, we work because we want to have better things for ourselves. Even at different levels, there are people that are more greedy than others. There are people that are less greedy, that already think about society, work. But even those at our level, we want to have a comfortable life. And again, the concept of a comfortable life is different for each one of us. But we are not prepared to struggle, because when we struggle, it's difficult for us to function. So we need to find comfort. And this is in the end is the purpose of temptation, to develop human reason, right? If we have to have it, so we progress. We find better solutions for ourselves. And remember that the two wings of the evolution, the intellectual progress that we accumulate and learn, at a certain point, it doesn't go any further if it doesn't bring up the moral side also. You can evolve intellectually until a certain point without evolving morally. At a certain point, you have to evolve morally, otherwise you cannot no longer evolve intellectually. Yeah. So in the end, one takes the other. Of course, there are those that evolve morally before intellectually, but that's the easy. The exception is the easy part, because once even morally also, you cannot evolve morally without bringing the intellectual side up at a certain point, right?
So there's a specific gap that you will find between them two, but not really an abysmal gap.
There is no abysmal gap. Yeah, there is always a gap, because you are never balanced at our stage. Yes, but there is always a gap that we will make us push one side or the other. So you think of someone that has all the intellectual abilities and not many moral qualities, it will have to come into an incarnation of difficulties to that they will have to be able to use their intellectual abilities to develop their moral side. It'll be kind of an imposition, and the struggle will make them, you know, the more they resist, the more struggle they have. And on the moral side is easy, right? If you already have a moral development, you just need to come to an incarnation where you focus yourself on intellectual side, and you are a good person by nature. So, but you'll be interested in the intellectual development that will come with the natural curiosity of developing it. Okay. Okay.
Step 13.
Yeah.
Has nature indicated the clear limits of pleasures? Yes. Limits that coincide with your needs. Excess leads to satiety, and you end up punishing yourselves.
Yeah, you probably have gluttony in your translations, but the original is satiety. Okay. Satiety. Satiety. Yeah.
Depends on how you pronounce it.
Satiety. Satiety. Yes, that's the word. Satiety. Satiety. Yeah, I went to the original in French, and it is satiété, and in Portuguese, yes. So because if you look for the meaning of satiety, the most common meaning is when you eat too much and you are full with, yeah, you can no longer eat. So that's why I think they ended up, whoever translated used gluttony. It's not 100% wrong, but it's satiety is a better word for what they are trying to describe here, right?
It's more kind of, I guess, pretty kind of carries value judgment there.
Sorry?
Carries a value judgment.
Yeah.
There, but
Yes.
and the other one is more kind to.
Yes, gluttony you can think of food only, right? Basically,
Yeah.
and such satiety, it's much more, it's more ample, the concept. Yeah. But again, the limit is, we know the limit because when we go over the limit, like we are going to see in the next question, we harm ourselves, right? You eat too much, you don't feel well after, right? So it's the nature consequence of our own abuses. And that's what we discuss on the next question. Hello.
7:14. What should we think of those who seek to enhance their pleasure in all sorts of excesses? Such individuals should be pitied rather than envied because they are very close to death. Physical or moral death, both. Those who seek an enhancement of physical satisfactions in any kind of excess place themselves below animals, because even animals stop at the satisfaction of a need. They relinquish the reason given to them by God for their guidance, and the greater their excesses, the more power they give to their animal nature over their spiritual nature. Diseases, illnesses, and death itself are the consequences of excess. They also serve as atonements for transgressing God's laws.
Yeah, when we talk about excesses here, nowadays we need to go into the psychological aspects, right? People go into excesses because of lack of something, right? And normally you talk to these people and they talk about emptiness, lack of objectives, lack of purpose. the excesses are to fulfill something that they feel it's empty inside, right? Again, it's very easy for us here to say what is lacking is a spiritual studies, spiritual knowledge, spiritual understanding. But unfortunately, some of these people, they are not interested and they are searching in other ways. So that leads to excesses, which they are looking for pleasures, right? And you can talk about food, you can talk about alcohol, you can talk about drugs, you can
Shopping.
talk about, yes,
Gambling.
extreme sport,
Even law.
gambling, and all sorts of excesses. And again, most of these things, or some of these things, they are not a problem in themselves. The excesses are the problem, right? So if we talk about food, right? Food, we need to eat, but excess is what creates problems, health problems for ourselves. Even those things that are less recommended for, because in our spiritual journey, right? Like alcohol, gambling. If you don't do it in excess, it really does not cause you much harm, right? You can discuss here if you should gamble or you should not gamble. That's a completely different discussion. But if you gamble without being addicted, yes, it's not really a big issue, right? We can discuss the spiritual consequences, and that's a different story. But we're talking about excesses that will cause your physical or moral death here, which are the ones that we talked about, right? So, you know, if you consume alcohol, Kardec used to drink wine, of course, France. You cannot not drink wine in France. But, you know, yeah, moderately. There is no, without excesses, it's not a risk to your health in most cases, right? There are people that have problems, and the addictions also. There are people that are inclined to have addictions, so you have to be careful, right? You have to understand your limitations also. It's a self-knowledge thing, right? But we're talking here is really excesses, right? So the difference is that when this was written, the knowledge of and the knowledge and understanding of the psychological aspects of the excesses were not as clear as they are today. Of course, we still have a lot to learn, and we'll continue learning. But nowadays, we understand much better the origins, physical, and we in Spiritism, the spiritual origins of these addictions, and the consequences are much more clear nowadays than they were. You know, smoking, for instance, 50 years ago, there were some studies of the ill effects of smoking. Well, 50, not 100, or 70 years ago, right? Yeah, it started in the 60s, yeah, late 60s. So it's like 50 years ago that we started really understanding how bad was smoking, right?
Yeah, about 50 years ago.
Yeah. And alcohol also, right? Cocaine was legal in the beginning of the 20th century, right?
We'll probably have some findings with cell phones.
Yes.
Future,
Yes.
with our eyes.
Yes.
We'll see
It
in
affects
years.
the hearing and the.
Your
The eyes.
screen is so bright and you stay so many hours looking at your computer working and your phone. That probably in 60 years will start.
You look back and then see, wow, all those people were crazy.
Yeah.
Like we see movies in the 40s, everybody smoking and
That's true.
yeah,
Casablanca.
yeah. Okay.
So it was sophisticated.
Yes, well, sophisticated, yeah. Okay, questions? All right, so necessary and superfluous things.
How can human beings know the limit of what is necessary? Wise men and women know by intuition, while many others learn through experience and at their own expense.
Yeah, when we discuss here, we start discussing what is the limit, what is necessary, right? Each one of us can look inside our homes and see how many necessary things we have and how many unnecessary things we have, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I have a thing that I have 50 pair of shoes. 50, isn't that
That's necessary.
You discuss pair of shoes with women? Yes, that's not going to end well. There is this Japanese lady that is teaching us how to have only the necessary, right? Was her name Marie Kondo, or it's the Netflix series, right? You watch her and she goes to the homes and separates what's necessary, what's superfluous. I read somewhere that if you want to clean your wardrobe, you look at anything that you haven't used in 1 year, it's superfluous. You don't really need it. But how many of us do that, right?
But when it's true, when I go to Miami, I can't go because I think that's what
Yeah, you know,
I see difference
when you travel, right? You pack a suitcase and you travel for 2 weeks with one suitcase. If you can live with a suitcase for 2 weeks, you can live with much less than what you have at home. But the spirits here are telling that wise men and women know by intuition, while we, the rest, have to learn at our own expense, right? But I think it goes a little deeper, right? Because we need to not only understand what is superfluous to ourselves, but how can we help others with what is superfluous that we have that is superfluous, right? Because there are those in need. So there are those that need the clothes that we don't. There are those that need the food that we're throwing away, and that's an exercise in growing spiritually, right? That we all need to do, each one at their own pace. Right? But to be aware of it is the first step, right? To understand that we can do more with what we have and what we dispose of. It's learning through experience and learning at our own expense. Okay.
$7.16.
Yep.
Has nature outlined the limit of our needs in the requirements of our physical makeup? Yes, but human beings are insatiable. Nature has indicated the limits of their needs by their physical makeup, but their vices have changed their structure and created wants that are not real needs.
Yeah. It's when we talk about the spiritual body, right? The physical body, right? The physical body evolves in a much slower pace than our intellectual development in terms of our physical body is not made for the kind of life we live today, right? We were supposed to be walking more or moving ourselves more or not being sitting most of the day. A lot of the things that our physical body is not prepared to deal with it because we evolved intellectually to give comfort to our physical body in a way that the physical body could not accompany, right? So nature has given us a physical body that is capable of surviving and of providing us with what we need. But we, with our evolution, we have changed the way that how we are treating our physical body. So what the spirits are telling us here, and that's 170 years ago, that our vices have changed our structure and creates wants that are not real needs. So we have wants for ourselves that we don't really need. And again, what are the wants and what are the needs is an individual question that each one has to ask oneself, right? But also, right, we are living longer than our physical body is in theory prepared to deal with in our living conditions. I was talking to Elmo before the meeting, right? And Rogério, that Divaldo with 94 just went to Portugal and Spain and did a couple of lectures in Portugal and a couple of lectures in Spain. And can you imagine 94 years old, right? How did he get to 94 years old? Because you don't hear of 94-year-old people traveling by plane to somewhere else, right?
Giving lectures.
Yeah, and giving lectures and sitting, right? So is his physical body frail? Yes, of course. He needs help for to move, to, you know, but again, he's 94. But you see that our mind is capable, if we have a healthy spiritual life, to survive a longer life, right? Of course, we're not Divaldo. We cannot expect to get to 94 like him, right? There are those that live. It's not only Divaldo, because there are people that exercise. You see these old people, 100 years old. I saw a 100 years old that walked a marathon, right, the other day, right?
Wow.
But come on, 100 years old walking a marathon. So you know, it's
Wow.
our physical body is capable of, but our lifestyle does not allow our physical body to get there, again, for the majority of us, right? So we need to adapt. We need to learn how to take better care of our physical body for it to be more productive for a longer time, right? And we are doing that, right? Because when you talk about the retirement age today, which is in this country 66 and a half or 67, yeah, people get to 67 years old and they're capable of working and capable of continuing living a healthy life, right? When this law was passed 40, 50 years ago, that was 65 at the time, people get to 65, most people in no condition of continuing working, right? Now our president is 80, turned 80, and is thinking of running for re-election, right? So we're not going to discuss politics here, but it's is he fully capable? Apparently, we don't really know, but apparently, right? So we are progressing, we are evolving, we are learning to take better care of ourselves, but still we are lacking in terms of our physical body still needs some improvements in our lifestyle for us to be able to go longer with it, right?
Yeah, I think what the spirits are telling us here is an issue of discipline. To educate ourselves to listen to the signals that the body gives to us. You're talking about, you know, eating and get full. The body will give the signal. You had enough. You need, if we educate ourselves, you listen to that physical body, to that physical sign, and you stop eating. But because of the vices, because of the wants, not the needs, we continue to eat, What's happened? The stomach that's supposed to be this big, now is elastic, becoming this big. So what was enough when you saw was this big, now it's not enough anymore, because now it's this big. And that creates the problem for human beings. But that's just one example. It's for everything. Exercise is excellent for your health. But can you become an addicted? You have to need a biceps, the size of a watermelon. What for?
Yeah.
Right? For you to sit on a chair and the computer work. Excesses. Now, the operator front was talking about, it didn't go too much into it, but when our physical body becomes so large, so big, that it, because if you remember, our chakra, the center of energies, is the center and has to spread and carry those energies down. Are you really spreading those energies too thin, going to biceps the size of watermelons? And then there's a body code. We need to have surgical, cosmetic surgery to have bigger thighs, to have bigger gluteus. Excesses, it's all excess. We think food immediately, sex. Now we have medications that are meant to correct an anomaly of a problem of, let's say, overaction. But you've reached 80 years old, you would use those medications. Is it healthy for spiritual speaking? At 88 years old, you're still making use of those medications. What if those 88 years old discarnate a week later is still in a sexual desire? How this individual gonna give in the spiritual world? Excesses. If you have discipline, if you learn how to listen to our body, we avoid those problems. We avoid to have a stomach this big, they're supposed to be this big.
Okay. Okay, last one of this item, then we stop.
717. What should we think of those who, in order to secure access, hoard the goods of the earth to the detriment of others who lack what is necessary to survive? They overlook God's law and will have to answer for the poverty they have caused others to suffer. There is no finite boundary between what is necessary and what is superfluous. Civilization has created necessities that do not exist for primitive people. The spirits who have dictated the aforementioned principles are not saying that civilized human beings should live as primitive people do. Everything is relative, and reason must determine how things should be divided. Civilization develops both the moral sense and the sentiment of charity, which leads people to support one another mutually. Those who live at the expense of others, depriving them of even the barest necessities and hoarding the benefits of civilization for their own profit, only wear the mask of civilization, just as others only wear the mask of religion.
Yeah, okay, again, we didn't discuss this excess, which is to hoard things for yourself, right? You have, the other day I was reading about a restaurant in Qatar in the World Cup that serves meat with gold.
Even what they have
Where they have the World Cup.
on Qatar.
Yeah. Why do you need to have gold in meat? Gold, the metal. Gold has no use for our physical body, right? So this is clear excess, right? Again, I'm not saying that those who went to eat there, it's their own issues, right? But this is the problem that we create with excesses, right? We need to do things more attractive to the wealthy, because the wealthy already have everything so we need to create even more attractive things to them, right? So the concept is that it's no longer VIP, right? It's VVIP that they have, because it's VIP, it's already a second-class citizen, right? You have now the VVIP.
Really? I
Yeah.
hope to go there, I get to fly there. That's a fortune and stay in a hotel there too.
Jussara the other day gave a great definition of VIP.
What?
Very imperfect people.
Yeah. I like that. Very good.
But what Kardec is saying here on a comment is also interesting, right? Because it doesn't mean that we have to go back to live like primitive people, right? You think about the Amish, right? It's their choice. They believe in, according to their religion, what they follow. I don't know why they stopped in the 18th century and not in the beginning of the 19th century or middle of 19th century. Again, it's their religious beliefs. But and they, I know that they do a lot of good work and a lot of good, and they help the communities that they live a lot, right? But you don't need to, according to what we understand in Spiritism, you don't need to go back to that, right? Light helps us a lot, right? We can use energy for, it's used for wrong things also, but mostly is used for useful things, right? So to go back to the time we didn't have electric energy, why, right? Progress is progress, with the good and the bad. And we need to understand how can we use this progress to help humankind as a whole, not to help only ourselves. And that's the problem that the spirits say here. When we start to hoard and we start to accumulate things only for ourselves and do not take care of the poverty that we see around us, is when we are going to create consequences for ourselves and create karmas for ourselves, right? These people, they are going to have to face very likely a very difficult next incarnation where they will lack basic necessities for them to learn to give value of the need of others.
Well, that is very positive. We'll have to look at it as a positive because they are given the opportunity to learn.
Yes, it's always progress.
It's not so much of a compliment,
No,
it's the opportunity to go.
it's law of progress. Yeah, it's law of progress. You are progressing when you are coming without the access to what made you go astray the previous incarnation.
That's why I went through the difficult side, because I was good at one point.
Okay. Right, any questions? Okay, so stop here. Next week we go to voluntary deprivations, mortifications, which is an interesting subject also. Okay.
Yeah, that happened in that other questionnaire.
There still exist, right?
That's it.
Yeah, they still exist. Yeah.
It does?
Yes, this voluntary deprivations, yes, and mortifications also, they still exist. Of course, much less than they used to exist, but still exist, yeah. So what do we have? So this Saturday, we have a special presentation by the United States Spiritist Federation. It's year-end. They do this year-end live talks with members of the different federations in the United States. So the subject is self-assessment and resolutions, which is very appropriate for year-end, right? And self-assessment, what we just discussed a lot here today, right? So there'll be members from the California Association, the Medical Association, the Tri-State Spiritist Federation, the Maryland Spiritist Association, the Florida Spiritist Association, and the United States Spiritist Federation. This Saturday at 11 a.m. Again, it's self-assessment and resolutions. Okay.
The round table.
Sorry?
The round table.
It's a Zoom, it's a round table. Each one will speak for like 10-15 minutes, and then we'll have questions, discussions. Yeah.
Is there a World Spiritist Council?
There is an International Spiritist Council, yes. Yeah. Jussara is the general secretary of it. Yeah, they published, they are responsible for the World Spiritist Congress that just happened virtually in October. And they have the Spiritist Review published every 3 months. It's also the, and they recently made all the basic books of Spiritism available online for free in 10 different languages, I think, even in Esperanto. Yeah, it's available on their website, the International Spiritist Council website. It's SEI, Conselho Espírita Internacional.
So you can Google it.
You can Google International Spiritist Council, you'll find it. Yeah, it's a lot of good. The Spiritist Review that was published in the last couple of years, very good. So the book club finished, is taking a break. They finished the book 50 years later. They're going to start again January 11 with the book Hail Christ, okay, which is the next book of the Emmanuel collection. And also SGNY will be closed for all meetings online and presential from December 23rd, reopening on January the 3rd. All right, so there'll be 2 Sundays, 2 Mondays, 1 Tuesday and 1 Thursday that will be closed. Besides the book club that is taking a 1-month vacations.
So we talk about the 22nd?
No, the 22nd will be here. Will be the last meeting. Yeah, we'll be here the 22nd. Then Sunday, which is Christmas, will be closed. Then 26th, which is the official holiday here in this country, 26 because it's on a Sunday, Christmas. And then January 1st is also a Sunday. And January 2nd is a holiday here. It's a national holiday, so we'll be closed also. So we reopen on the on January 3rd with the this we'll be closed on the Thursday between those two. Yeah, also Tuesday and Thursday will be closed between those two. We reopen on January 3rd, which is a Tuesday, the noon meeting. Yeah, the Happy Life, the not Happy Life, the book is they're studying the Empty Lives book by Joana de Argelis that Jussara is studying. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? We're good? Okay. Soraya, can you do our final prayer?
Of course, absolutely. To our beloved Father, our Christ, to our spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels, all that have contributed here in this beautiful meeting today, helping us and assisting us in what is necessary to our improvement here as we are in this physical world. We are grateful, dear Father, for the teachers and mentors that continue to assist us throughout the weeks, the mediums, for the teachers, all that have given us so much to assist us in our daily lives. We pray, dear Father, for those that are still going through trials and tribulations and suffering in this planet Earth. May we continue to pray, assisting them, helping them and guiding them. We pray for all that are homeless, those that are in undeveloped countries who are in need, for the orphanages, so many that are in need, dear Father. May we continue throughout the week with our prayers, assisting and helping all that we can. We ask that we continue throughout the week with our study groups to join in our meetings, and throughout the week to continue in our prayers at home with our families and loved ones. May they all be blessed and cared for. We are so grateful, dear Father. We thank you. We thank all our teachers, the United States Spiritist Federation, United States Spiritist Councils, all Spiritist centers, an opening for all that is coming now. May we continue to follow our Spiritist Group of New York, our work and dedication. We thank you, dear Father. And with this in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting today. So be it.